Hey guys, thanks for joining this recording. I am here with Camila Arguello today, and we're going to be talking about her experience as she's gone through college, as she is actually graduating this month. So there's a lot of you guys out there have different fears, whether you're thinking about going to college or you're in college and you want to know, what's life after graduation going to be like? And am I the only one sitting here with all of these fears? I'm here to let you know that you are definitely not the only one out there with all these fears. And Camila's going to go through her experiences in college and let us know what life's been like for her for the past so many years and what she's looking forward to most after graduation. So welcome, Camilla. Thank you again for joining me. It's very exciting as you're coming close to graduation. How are you feeling right now? Jitters? What's going on?
No, not really. I think I'm ready to just do the dang thing. 2 weeks left. It also just feels a little bit surreal just because I think it's been 5 years and I've basically taken like summer classes almost every summer. So it's been like a nonstop for the past 5 years. So I just can't quite conceptualize what life will look like when I'm not thinking about the next class to take or the next semester. But excited to not do that
Right.
for a
It is
while.
interesting, right? Because those classes get you so structured, right? So it's kind of nice having the structure. But the fact that you took summer classes, a lot of students count down till the end of, May or June so they can start summer break. But you've been going straight through summer. So I commend you for that. And so that kind of leads into what degree, what school are you going to? What degree are you going to be getting here at the end of May?
Yeah, so I'm at Linfield College. It's a small liberal arts school in Oregon. It's in McMinnville. I'm going to graduate with a BA in International Relations and a BS in Psych.
Wow. So double degree then.
hmm
That's awesome. Okay. Now, what attracted you to those two degrees?
Um, Psych, I kind of always knew that I wanted to go into it. When I first went into college, this is not my first college. I almost said rodeo. But when I first went into school, I already knew that psych was what I wanted to do. I was actually pre-law when I first went into my undergrad. And by the end of my first year, realized that's not what I really wanted to do. So I was looking for something else. I think I changed my major my freshman year like 4 times, the pre-law side of it, just because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So I think I was marketing for a bit and then management, and then I don't remember what else I considered. And then I finally landed on international relations just because I, at that point, thought that I wanted to work with like nonprofits or with international legislation. So I figured IR was the way to go. And then once I moved states and changed everything in the past couple of years, I just stuck with it. So I just stayed on that track.
I like that. Yeah, I changed degrees halfway through too. So I got an associate's in engineering and then ended up with a bachelor's in software engineering.
Cool.
And it was one of those things that I always thought that was what my passion was, engineering, in high school. But when I was sitting there doing 4 pages of calculations to figure out like the stress on a bolt, I was like, yeah, this isn't what I want to do anymore. So
Yeah.
I switched directions, but it did work out. It took me a little bit longer, just as yourself. And you're talking about the summer classes. So this is one thing I think there's kind of a misconception there where bachelor's degree is always 4 years. And I know you kind of you did the 2 degrees and you did a little bit of switching there, but I mean, you had to do summer classes to get this over in 5 years. So you did a lot of work to get all this done. Kind of tell me what that was like, having to push hard. I mean, you could have taken 6 or 7 years if you didn't do the summer classes. So what encouraged you to do summer classes and get this done quicker?
Specifically summer classes, not a whole lot. I wasn't a double degree until the end of my fourth year. Um, I decided to make just like a
A
fun
little bit
change.
more difficult. Yeah.
I was like, go big, go home.
Yeah.
Um, so it wasn't until the end of my first senior year, I guess, that I decided to change it to a double degree. Before that, I was a double major. Um, I think a big misconception that people have is that being a double major means you have 2 degrees, and it's not. You have one diploma. It just shows like a concentration in two things. So that kind of spurred me to want to do a just like a full like double degree. And at that point, I was taking a lot of my summer classes were actually focused on a minor that I had until recently, that I dropped recently. So I actually ended up taking classes last summer. I think the summer before that, oh, I don't, no, I did take classes that summer. Sometimes I forget.
It's a big blur at this point, right? Yeah.
What did I take when? But I think the really big thing for me was just I constantly felt like I was running behind. I think there's this huge pressure and idea and this dream that's sold to you in high school, especially if you go to a private high school or somewhere that's like notorious for, pumping out to Ivies or going like, big name schools. There's this idea that you apply to these schools, you get into them, and you find your dream home, and you go there, and you like, it's almost like a relationship. It's a fairy tale. It's like you walk onto campus, and you're like, oh my god, like homework's harder, but like this is my true love, and then you spend 4 years there, and they're amazing, and then you graduate, and in those 4 years, and that's it, and there's no real room for anything that deviates from that. So I know that for me, a lot of it was just after my freshman year, I had like worn myself down to the bone. My health was in the trash. I was kind of coming off of high school with a chip on my shoulder. I wasn't feeling super academically strong. That's also because I went to a really kind of posh high school that made you feel like you were failing if you graduated with a 3.7. So when I went to college, I was like, let's go, let's get this bread, 4.0 all the way. And I did. I got that in my second semester, but I was taking 6 classes at the time. And that 4.0, like I said, it drove me into the hospital. I was so sick. And so coming out of that, I decided to take time off school, and I actually just took a whole semester off. I took a semester off, and I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go back to that institution, if I wanted to change, and decided to go to community college for a semester. And then after that I moved. So it's, I think part of why, to answer your original question, is like I did such a sped up kind of thing. I think I just I got in the rhythm of it. I took 17 to 18 credits every semester that I've been in school.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot. And that kind of leads me into my next question. Like, so what is your lifestyle like, because a lot of people, full-time is typically 12 hours. So, and I do sometimes recommend with freshmen that they might take 12 hours the first year, because you've done school before, yes, but you haven't done it where it's on your own responsibility, and you have a 3-hour gap in between classes to get lunch and potentially skip class. So there's a lot of personal responsibility there. There's all the distractions on campus. So taking 17, 18 hours, what was your lifestyle like as far as social life, work? I don't know if you were able to work during school or not.
Yeah, so I actually work full-time as well.
Oh, goodness.
I think it's all about the standards that you set, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing. It's definitely a double-edged sword. Like at times, it's like, oh my god, this is the worst thing in the world. Like I'm a freaking failure. This semester is really interesting because this semester I only took 15 credits, which for me is like a low amount. So I was like, we're going to just like breeze through life, only 15 credits. And it was actually one of the most challenging semesters that I had. I was writing my thesis, finishing out the other department, and had a lot of life stuff happen too. And had a class where I've turned in like 3 papers late, which I've never done ever. Because I always, prided myself on not doing those things, because, again, we're sold this idea that you turn in a paper late and you're a terrible human being.
Yeah, failure. Yeah, like you said, you slip right into that. Like, I can't believe I did that. Yeah. Who am I? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, and so during, I forget what month it was that I was really struggling, maybe March, I just remember being like, oh my God, I'm at my lowest performance. I am only taking 15 credits. Like, who am I to turn in a paper late? Like, what kind of trash brain is happening right now? And it's funny because I think that really speaks to the really negative side of what doing something like taking 18 credit hours every semester does for you. But on the flip side, I think that it just allowed me to set my sights higher. I had to time manage a lot more, especially balancing work. And right now I'm transitioning into my full-time position, and it's already started. So I have stuff like I'm working remotely. I've worked remotely for the past year and a half in a different position, and I've done prep for summers because summers are my busy season as I'm a manager in Cutco. And having been a summer full-time manager, working 60 hours a week in the office during the summers and prepping for that in the springs, most of my springtime has been really, really managed. And as busy as I've been, like, I think it's really just not allowed me to fall into that trap of taking a 3-hour break for no reason and then not doing my homework and then being like, oh, I'm just like really busy. Like, because I don't BS myself. Like, there's definitely days where I'm like, you know what, like, this isn't happening. Like this morning, I was like, I'm going to take like a full, because I was working on my thesis, which I finished my senior portfolio yesterday, and I mailed it in at like 6 p.m. So it's now been like 20 hours that I haven't done.
Right. No edits, right? I mean, it's gone at this point. There's no going back and adding edits or anything like that.
Right. But I have, I'm actually leaving campus early to go work. So all my stuff has to be done by Monday. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like let myself have until like 1 p.m. to like really get my day started. I'm just going to take a real slow Saturday morning. And I've been watching Netflix and I'm like, I'm cool with that. I'm not like upset about it. I'm not like berating myself like, oh my gosh, you're trash because you took one morning to watch Netflix. Because I don't prescribe to that. I used to be like, hustle till you die. If you don't, you know, you're not studying or working or eating, like, you're wasting time.
Yeah.
But that's not really a way to live life. This semester, not so much, as it's been my last one and I've had a lot of other stuff life-wise, but I was a pretty involved student on campus here at this institution. Not my first one so much, but here on this campus at one point I was taking 18 credits. I was also on the campus social media committee, and I was also VP of one organization. I'm in a fraternity, and I'm usually just doing a lot of stuff. So I was pretty involved though. So I wasn't like, I know that some students, you know, when you work full time and you also do school full time, you kind of just like check out from campus life. And I didn't really want that because I felt a little bit checked out my freshman year. So I really made the effort to be really involved on campus, and I have been, you know, which it's been a ride. This semester I was like, I wasn't super involved this semester, but in the past I was.
Yeah. And I feel, you know, they say if you want to get something done, give it to the busiest person, because you do start to train yourself for this time management. And I think that's a huge skill to have when it comes to life after graduation, because you could have, I mean, there's a lot of students, and I guess there's nothing wrong with this, as depending on how well you balance it, but doing like 12 hours a semester, spending 5 hours a day on Netflix and partying with friends, like, you would have had a great time in college. But then when you have 8 hours a day of work, you've got, you know, time to get up in the morning, do that. Then you've got your tasks after work. If you're not used to balancing really a 12-hour day like you are, you know, at school, then it becomes very draining and very difficult very quickly.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Adult life hits you so much harder because you went from high school, which you're still kind of a kid, to by age you're an adult in college. But if you don't do those balancing things, then you get not kicked out, but when you graduate and, you know, get bunted into the adult life, it is a completely new world.
Right.
And I feel college is a great transition as long as you lean into it.
Right.
And by you doing all the activities and working full time, I mean, trust me, I will tell you, in probably 3 or 4 years from now, you're going to look back and wonder, how in the world did I do that? Because
no, I wonder that still sometimes as I look around.
Yeah, because there's times that I have those lazy days. I'm like, I'm tired now. How did I manage to work? There's some Saturdays I was working 16 hours between like 2 or 3 different jobs on Saturdays, you know, when I'm out of school. But that's what it took, because like, you know, you got to get your stuff during the week. You got to make money to survive. And it just wasn't an option. There was no other option other than doing that. And I definitely think it paid off now. But looking back, like, if you told me to do that today, I'm like, I don't know about that. You seem kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's a yikes for me. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I feel like this college, I think, unfortunately, is oftentimes viewed as like that period in your life where, yeah, it's going to be really hard and stressful, and you're going to be like, oh gosh, like, I hate everything half the time. But it's nothing like real life. And once you get into the real world, and again, I think these concepts that are sold to young people are just complete BS, because there's no such thing as the real world. I mean, the real world exists around you when you're 9 years old. I mean, sure, you're not paying a mortgage at 9 years old, but a lot of the times by the time you're 16, like you have to handle your own finances, and we don't learn how to do that. So then we get to college, and then people wonder why there's people in their 40s that are doing the same thing college students are, which is dreading everything on life and planet Earth on Sunday night, waking up wanting to murder people on Monday morning, and doing what's necessary to survive until Friday afternoon, or in a lot of cases Thursday. And then, raging, or, for 40-year-olds that could look very different, but raging in some way until Sunday morning comes, and then you're faced again with your life. And I think that that's such a crappy way to look at life. And that's one of the biggest things that I think that I've always worked to avoid, because I don't know. I just don't see life as like just 5 days of grinding and dying on the inside to just have 2 days of nothingness. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, I'm one of those weird people that Mondays are honestly one of my more favorite days.
Oh my God, it's my favorite day of the week.
To a brand new week.
Yeah. It's my favorite day of the week. I got socks in the mail a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, it's a Monday. My lucky number is 22. I was like, it's the 22nd on a Monday, and I got socks in the mail. Like, this is the best day of my life.
I love it, yeah. Those are the adult small wins, right? And
Right,
for me too, when you sleep in on the weekend and you don't have a fully filled schedule, I'm like ready to knock out at like 2:00 because I didn't have like this fully filled day. And then Monday comes, and I still got the 9 to 5 or whatever, but I enjoy that because you have the structure, you're just knocking things out, and it feels good. And to me, I encourage people, going through school, you have got to make sure you put all this time in. You put in 5 hours, you put 5 years in, 18 credit hours almost every semester. Like, you don't want to just go to the first job that falls into your lap just because you can use your degree. I know you have an expensive degree, but there's no point in sitting there and hating 5 days out of your 7 days a week after you've spent all that money, time, and energy. And that's one thing that's hard to get across.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of pressure to again, this fairy tale again, to find like this like dream or whatever, or to start your real life. And I also think that's complete BS, because honestly at 22, 23, 24, 25, like, you don't, in most cases, I'm not saying all, but in most cases, you don't have kids, you don't have a mortgage, you might be in a serious relationship, but it's not like you're working on, moving through the roadblocks of 10 years past marriage. Like, there's just different things that you're focused on. And I feel like people are just so hell-bent on like finding that job and like setting themselves up for the rest of their life. And I'm like, I honestly would say like taking a pay cut is preferable to taking like a happiness cut. That's a lot of motorcycle, and doing that for X amount of years, because like what's there's no guarantee. Like, I don't know. I just feel like people, and this is also me in a complete place of privilege saying that, because I've never stressed about having to find a job after graduation. Like, I moved up in Cutco. I worked hard in Cutco. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do after graduation. And then a chance to go back to one of my other positions kind of fell into my lap over December. And then I decided to take it in January. So this past semester, I've known what at least the next year is going to hold. So I know that that's very different from people that don't know that. However, I think that also speaks to the lack of preparation in college kids for real world positions during college. I think we're sold this idea of unpaid internships and so-called experience, but you don't actually get any experience. I mean, yeah, you can talk about it, and I've had one unpaid internship the whole time I've been in college. The only reason I took it was because it was in South Africa, and I was like, all right, like, let's go.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and like at a brewery, so I was like, okay, gosh, no, I'll die, I guess. But this idea that you should like sell your summers, that there's this thing on campus. And don't get me wrong, I love my campus, but they're offering like $2,000 for you to take an unpaid internship over the summer, a whole summer, a whole 3-4 months for $2,000. That's $400. That's $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what kind of, that's another thing. Like, that just, it's just a constant environment and culture of looking at young people as worthless in the workforce and as the best that you can hope for is that, or like $10 an hour minimum wage. And you shouldn't do that. I think college, again, you don't have these large overhead bills. College is the perfect time to, get out there and do something different and like find a job that's pays more. And that might be weird, but why not? Like if you can actually get out there and get some real world skills that will transfer, that's way more valuable than, I don't know, saying that you worked somewhere for 3 years, but that doesn't really offer you much in terms of what you can say. I don't know.
Right. Well, and the big thing that's always fearful when you find a job that you're not like totally in love with is getting stuck kind of in like that comfort zone. So your job is actually sucking energy away from you. So
Yeah.
unless they drive you all the way to the rock bottom where you're like, okay, I'm ready, I'm done. A lot of times there are companies out there that like keep you happy enough that like, well, I don't want to go through the whole resume and interview
Right.
experience. And like,
Right.
I could do better, but it's just, I'm happy enough with where I'm at that I don't want to have to go through that
Yeah.
process. Or you don't think that you're valuable enough to sell to another company.
Yeah. And I think that that's the biggest thing is we're not really taught to value ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing is you get paid for the amount of value that you provide other people.
Absolutely.
And, because there's fights about minimum wage and things like that. And, to me, like one that I always see famous, and I don't want to dive too deep into this, but is like an EMT makes, $14 or $15 an hour. They're saving lives. And then you have somebody that works at an entry level position and they're upset that they can't live off of the 14 or they can't live off the current minimum wage. And like, you can provide a lot of value, but you just got to step up and do it. So like, I know you might not be good at being an EMT, right? Like maybe blood makes you queasy or whatever. Find out what that passion is of yours, figure out what you're good at, and figure out how you can add value to other people so you can get that higher wage. And sometimes a $30,000 piece of paper that you got from some school isn't going to do that unless you can take what you learned and grow it.
Right. And put yourself in those environments.
5 years.
Yeah. And really just, again, challenge yourself. And I think I think part of the reason, like I've had such a different-ish and packed and really interesting college experience is because I'm constantly pushing my own envelope. Like I never want to get comfortable and I never want to get cozy and I never want to keep a job just because I'm good at it. Like at this point in my career, I've been in Cutco for 5 years. Like I thought I was going to, answer a job posting because I needed money as a 17-year-old. And now I'm like, oh, wow, that lasted a lot longer than I thought. However, like I like what I do and I'm good at it, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily would feel that I have to be there because that's what I know. And I think that that's the other pitfall is you just get stuck into this trap of like, well, I've done it so long that I guess I'll just stay versus really, like you were saying, like diving into what you're good at and really exploring your different interests. Because that's the thing is like, isn't a major supposed to be what you're interested in? And yet so many people go into it just wondering or just picking something because that's the highest paying job you're going to get.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sure salary is typically one of the top factors when it comes to finding a major.
And that's so effed up, honestly, because you should be, you're going to dedicate 4 to 5 years of looking into something, right? So you should be looking at something not just for the degree that you're going to have. Yeah, okay, I get it. There's certain stuff that needs certifications. You're not going to, be an English major and then take your MCATs and be like, all right, guess I'm off to med school. Like, that's not going to happen. 100%. Totally fully realize that. However, you could be, like a chemistry bio major that wants to take their MCATs that's also really passionate in English and take all your electives in English or stay an extra semester if, it's financially feasible and get a minor degree or just, explore it. But we're just taught to just be in our own little box and never do anything outside of it. And it's just, there's so much magic that can happen if you just step outside of your box and just like do something else. Like I took this elective class my first year here, which was my junior year. So I took this elective class. It was really random. And it was, at that point, it was elective. And then I realized I could actually use it towards one of my degrees. So I was like really jacked about it. So I was like, okay, cool. And it was like living in a media world. So it's the most entry-level comm class you can take. It's just about like media and the role that it plays and the history behind it, whatever. And there's this project that you do in it called the Curiosity Project. It's titled that. And you're just supposed to take something you think is interesting and you just write like 8-10 pages about it. And most people, they're like, oh, like, I guess I'll do this, but like, I'm me. So I'm like, okay, what do I actually think is interesting?
You went
And at
all in.
the time, I was reading Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. And so I was thinking about the concept, and Eric Kleinberg. I don't ever want to like cite it without
Yeah, don't
He's
leave
a
him out of that.
sociologist, so he needs that credit. So I was reading this book and I was thinking, I was like, dude, Tinder just is so interesting to me because it's just like so wild. And so I decided, and in my infinite wisdom, as I like to call it, I submitted a proposal for writing this paper about Tinder as a joke. I was like, yeah, haha, this is what I find interesting. And the professor was like, all right, you'll find it interesting. Go investigate it. Go talk to me about the markets. Go talk to me whatever. And as I started like actually looking into it, I was like, okay, not only do I find this interesting, like this is really interesting. So I made this joke freelancer profile to include in my paper where I offered to rewrite guys' Tinder bios for them for
Oh, I
money.
love that. Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, okay. So I wrote it in the paper and I was like, I think that the market for dating app consultants is going to explode over the next couple of years, like as a part of this, whatever. I don't even remember what the heck I wrote. It was such a basic paper. I wrote it so long ago. However, I published I turned in the paper and then I had this joke profile that I had made. I didn't do anything with it, but then someone ordered off of it and I was like, oh my God, like this is not actually in the plan.
Oh,
But all
no.
right.
Yeah.
So, so at the time I would like jokingly write my friends' Tinder bios for them, just, as friends do. So I was like, okay, like, I guess. So I started doing it and then I started getting more orders. And then, I think the first year, I made like $200. So I made like, my coffee for the year.
Yeah.
Writing dudes' Tinder bios. Last year, I really didn't get any orders. I think I made like 170. But this year, I've made almost $600. Just
That's incredible.
I'm on pace to make $1,000 this year off that, and that in and of itself was just one paper in one class that I wrote, and now it's actually what I'm writing my book about. Like I'm about to finish a book and publish it next month about like a single guy's guide to dating apps, and like what started out as a paper has turned into something that I'm actually dedicating time to. That's going to be one of the other sides of my businesses, and it's an industry that I'm getting into, and like there's so much stuff in motion that would never have been if I hadn't just stepped out of my little psych box and just like gone and taken some weird class and
I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it's one of those things like, a lot of times if somebody would have said, I don't like the idea, a lot of us would have been instantly like, okay, I guess it's not a good idea. Right. And like you said, like you had a couple of weird thoughts that just like, this is kind of dumb or whatever, but all of a sudden it took off. But because a lot of people, because it wouldn't follow the perfect path of just going to school, getting the degree, and then getting the job with that degree afterwards, I could see you pushing it off to the side. And yeah, I know you're not going to be making a full-time income off of this, but it's something you're having fun with, something you're learning from. And I just think it's amazing that because like you said, with the age and everything, you were able to just kind of do a sidestep and do a little bit of a learning opportunity while making a little bit of coffee money at the same time.
Yeah. And I think that it's not everything has to be, the full-time income. Not everything that interests you has to turn into the side hustle that then you launch a media company off of. Like that's not everything has to be that serious. And that's what I tell people is you can make money on the internet doing so much random stuff. Like not saying everyone needs to go, freelance on Fiverr. And I'm actually about to step off of Fiverr. But you can do a lot of stuff. Like you'd be surprised what people will pay for.
Yeah.
And not enough people like really just take that because again, you're in this like pseudo stress environment. Not saying that college isn't stressful, because absolutely it is. But I think another thing is everyone's reassuring of that stress. So no one wants to challenge that. People, misery loves company. And just like in corporate jobs and cubicles, they're like, oh God, Barbara, back here again, slaving our lives away. You know what I mean? Like just like that, you turn to your neighbor in math class and you're like, God, I hate everything. And they're like, yeah, dude, me too. So you're in this like stress little bubble. So you never just like take time to just think about weird stuff and like do something weird.
And to me, that's adding energy, right? I mean, it's a little fun thing on the side because otherwise, I mean, like you said, you're still getting homework and everything else done, but being able to do something small like that on the side, make some money, play around with it. I mean, that's great. And it's funny how you talk about the misery loves company. You don't start, you start a conversation with somebody saying, "Oh, I hate this math class." You don't say, "I'm having a great day today," because I notice look at you like, "I hate you because I'm having a bad day." So the only way
Right.
you can start like that small icebreaker conversation is typically by dropping some
Yeah.
negative feeling, and that's
Yeah.
how we relate to each other, which is
Yeah.
that could be a whole other conversation.
Oh my gosh, it absolutely could. But it's funny is I don't know if you're a BYB last year, but
Yep.
I had lunch with Sean Stevenson, and a lot of what he said really resonated with me, but especially about finding out like what's funny about something. And so I'd hyped up there's this vegan barbecue spot like an hour away from here. And my roommate and I were like, yes, like let's go. We're going. This is the spot. Like we're gonna go. And 2 days before we were supposed to go, we'd rescheduled like 3 or 4 times because both of our lives just like
Life
kept
happens.
moving
Yeah.
away. And so we're like, all right, this Saturday it's going down. And we were gonna go. And 2 days before, my professor, because again, this is also like I go to a small liberal arts college, okay, so like some of the experiences I have are like what they would not happen at state schools. But that day, my professor happened to say, she's like, guys, I don't want to host class. Like, I just don't feel like hosting class indoors. So, like, do you guys want to go to this brewery? And we'll just go talk in the brewery. And I love beer. So I was like, of course. And, we're all seniors in that class. So we're all of age. And so went to this brewery and I left my keys in her car. And she, like, lives an hour away. So then that night I emailed her and I said, hey, I think I left my house keys and my car keys in your car, ? And then she got back to me and she said, yeah, I'm not going to be on campus until Monday. So I couldn't go to this vegan barbecue thing that I was like so ready for. I couldn't go anywhere really for the weekend. I was just, which is fine. I'm in a small college town. It's not like I go that many places, but I like had to walk from the grocery store back to my house. And I was like, this is weird because I'm like carrying bags to my house instead of in a car. And I told someone about this. I was like, guys, you want to hear the funniest thing? We had a group project for that class that weekend. And they were like, yeah, like what happened? And I told them, I was like, yeah, I left my keys in Dr. KW's car and like now I'm just kind of like walking places and laughing about it. And I thought it was funny. And the initial reaction that I got was like, oh my God, that freaking sucks. Dude.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought it was funny because so many of these things that happen in my daily life, like I think are hilarious. So I just like laugh at them and I'm not used to, but it happens quite often that people, their initial reaction to something I think is funny is like, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever heard ever.
Yeah. Are you the positive one of your friends too, that like you always find a positive spin on everything?
Yeah, most of the times.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that go to BYUB and QLM, do that. And for those of you listening that don't know that, it's a mastermind that we did through Hal Elrod and John Berghoff. Sean Stevenson, he's known, as a 3-foot giant, I think is what yeah. And he's an amazing person. He's been all over the country. He's been on Oprah with the president. He used to work for the president at one point. He gave a speech at this Best Year Ever Blueprint event last year and basically talked about how you can spin anything into a positive light. I won't give his story away, but basically he was stuck on an elevator and he's in a wheelchair and it's very difficult for him to reach buttons and some crazy things happen, but he actually enjoyed it. Most people being stuck in an elevator just because they couldn't touch buttons would be, horrified. But he turned it into a great experience for him. And Hal actually has that interview or has that speech on his podcast. So if you ever look up Hal Elrod Achieve Your Goals podcast, Sean Stevenson has an amazing hour-long speech that he did there. But like you said, you're inspired by people like that. And I think that really helps looking at the positive light, because if you sit there thinking about the negative, your whole day is going to be bad. Why let some small event ruin your entire day? It's just, to me, it's not worth the energy.
Yeah, it's really not. I think that kind of emotional processing should be saved for when shit hits the fan, which it will. And it does all the time. And just because you're in college doesn't protect you from that. Like being a student doesn't put you in a styrofoam bubble where nothing bad. People are going to die. People are going to get sick. Like you're going to have to handle some real world shit. Yeah. So if you've expended all your emotional energy on being upset because, like, I lost my chanclas, if you know me, you know that I'm wearing chunkless or I'm barefoot or I'm in high heels 99% of the time. So this was so frustrating because as soon as the weather started heating up and we lost all the snow, I don't really have shoes to wear because I don't like wearing sneakers. So the other day I literally just walked around barefoot, right? And I was just like, I just can't do this. I can't put on socks. I can't put on shoes. It's just so much for me. So I just didn't. So I ran errands barefoot all day. And if I had wasted all my emotional expenditure on being frustrated that I lost my chanclas, on being like, oh my God, now everyone's going to think I'm a buffoon walking around campus barefoot, I wouldn't have the energy to deal with hard things. And when hard things happen, like that's when you really do. You need to sit down and you need to take time and you need to fully process your emotions and be like, that was hard, and not try to rush through things and be like, no, I'm fine, everything's great. Like, no, it's not. And it won't be a lot of the times. But you have so much more capacity to deal with that and to come out of that better if you have like an emotional reservoir and you haven't wasted it yelling at the dude for cutting you off at the drive-thru. Like,
right. Yeah. Burning your energy on a level 3 thing and then a level 8 thing happening later in the day. Like it's going to be a really bad level 8 thing. It's going to turn into a 12, right?
Yeah,
Because you have no more energy left to actually deal with it. So I like that. And as we could keep talking forever. I think that's typical of anybody in, a QLM or BYB, which, is great. A couple things kind of wrap this up. So what is something you wish somebody told you before you started college?
Life isn't about straight A's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about so much more than that.
Yeah. I think it's a learning curve, right?
Yeah, life isn't about straight A's. There's 3 things. So you're like, tell me a thing. And I'm like, I'll tell you 4. No, there's 3 things. So life isn't about straight A's. Don't get sucked into paying a bunch of money for stuff that you don't need to. E.g., a lot of study abroad things are way more expensive than they need to be. And yeah, it might be a pain to have to file paperwork to bring in this experience because you didn't register with your campus or whatever. But if it saves you $5,000-$6,000, like, isn't that worth it? That's what I tell people. Like, I guess that's my 3rd/4th thing is like, don't take no for an answer. You can get so much done if you just pleasantly persist. Like, I know my program evaluation as a student, like what we have on our campus about where we are in terms of our degree, I have that thing down on lock. I've had a spreadsheet going since my first year, which I tell everyone to make, so you're never caught off guard by requirements or some, weird stuff happening. And I've been to the registrar's office on my campus so many times that one day one of the registrars turned to me and was like, Camila, program evaluations better than the registrars that are hired to work on this campus do. And I was like, yeah, I do, because it matters. Because missing a class here and there or not having a right credit adjusted could be the difference between me being here for 5 years or me being here for 8. Yeah. So just because people say this, or just because, someone told you, like, so what? Like, find a new way. Like, find something different. Take a summer class at a community college that you can bring in for this 1 credit so you can, skip 1 or 2 classes and then not have to do them. And yeah, I think just like, there's so much that, that could be wrapped into that. But I think the last thing I'll say is, like, it's okay to transfer. Transferring colleges doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't mean that you didn't do your due diligence going into your freshman year and picking that school. BTW, I did not do my due diligence. I moved to a different state, a different school that I'd never seen in my life. Picked it off Google because I was going through a breakup and I was like, I can't be here anymore. So definitely did not do what most students do, right? But in high school, I spent so much time stressing about the school and where I'm going to go and, like, what shirt am I going to rep on decision day or whatever the heck thing your school does. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. You're going to be fine. You can still graduate in 4 years if you really want to. You can change your major. It's all good. Like, not everything is a level 10 crisis event, and transferring especially doesn't have to be. And also, honestly, community colleges, in my opinion, are some of the best places on this freaking planet. Like, I 100% am grateful for the university that I went to my first year. Like, absolutely. you know, a lot. I learned so much there about people and culture and what I want as a person. And the departments there were fabulous. However, I would have been so happy to spend 2 years at my local community college. Like, that place was so epic. The professors were so on point. I got to know some of them on such a deep level. They cared a lot. You can exist as a student without spending 10 grand or more a semester, depending on like where you're at. And I think that they just get such a bad rap. Like, people just think that community colleges are for stupid, lazy people or for people that are never going to graduate. So I just tell people, like, if you, whatever way you go, whether you go to a 4-year community college, you take time off, you take a break in the middle, whatever you're doing educationally, like, make it sure it's on your terms. So know your transfer requirements, do the research yourself, have things mapped out. Like, don't let anyone tell you that you have to do something, or because you went to a JC, now you're going to be there for 5 more years. Like, no, you're not, because you know it. So don't let just like other people, like, force you into some weirdo bubble.
Well, and the thing is, at the end of it, typically you're the one that's stuck with the student loans.
Right.
So it's a lot of your decision.
Right. So, like, look at student loans for what they are. They're an investment on your future. So if you're going to make a 30,000, 40,000, 60 to 100K thousand decision, which, we could go into a whole thing on that. If you're going to make that big of a financial thing, like, I tell people, honestly, you treat student loans like you would treat buying a house. Because a lot of the times, the amount that you're going in for is that high. Yeah. So if you're going to buy a house, you best do your due diligence, and you best be prepared and know what you're doing, and not just let other people make you buy some weirdo house that now you have to live with for the rest of your life. Don't do that. And if you're unsure, then just start out at a community college and just fill out.
And the thing is, reading, English, math, those classes are pretty much the same no matter what school you go to, but you can pay $200 or $300 a credit at a community college, or $600, $700, $800 at a state college.
I paid $500 for a full semester for 12 credits at my community college with no assistance. Like, we just paid it outright, $500. Yeah. Okay? I pay, I'll just be real here. I pay $8,000 a semester here, plus $4,000. So so we pay $16,000 here plus $4,000 that was taken out on loans. So coming here is a $20,000 investment every single year that I've been here, which is why I'm only here for 3 years, because we weren't doing that for like 8. But and that's also why I sped up, because I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not showing out that kind of money. I'm trying to like do other things with my money. So know that ahead of time. Like, 500 or 20 grand. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And on the speed thing too, staying in there longer, that's so many more years that you're losing out on the big career salary, right? So the longer you're in school, that's one less year that you could be making 50, 60K at, the job that you're going to school for.
Right.
So, hanging out in college is, it's great because it's structured and it's kind of safe. Yes, it's stressful, but I definitely push for the expense of student loans, and the expense of missed out salary is just way too great.
Right. So just like get it done. And if you do take an extra year, like, okay, whatever, like, not the end of the world. You're not going to die, but then make sure that the stuff you're doing in college is actually applicable to a career. It is actually going to transfer, and you don't just have some like 6 different work study positions that an employer is just going to treat like it's worthless, because your time is worth more than that. Like, you are worth more than that as a student, and the world will try to tell you everything, but the answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we'll just go with one last question then. So what would be a piece of advice that you'd give to anybody going into college or getting ready to graduate?
Going into college, don't F around, don't waste time. Like, go in and if you kind of have an idea already, okay, cool, map it out. What's your next 4 years going to look like? And where do you have areas to explore and like do fun stuff? Like, know kind of going into it, and definitely map out your finances for sure. And don't get caught in the bubble of thinking that you have to be this broke, starving college student, because you don't. I know that everyone's life situations are very different, and I understand that. but a lot of it is just money mismanagement. It's not
Mm.
that you're not, you don't have any money. You could be making minimum wage and still manage it way better than the person sitting next to you who's like, yeah, I have $4 in my bank account.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
hashtag been there too, but there's ways to not be there, and then there's ways to handle that. And for people graduating, oh my gosh, chill out. Like this is not, it's, your life isn't over. Your life is barely like a quarter of the way there. I mean, unless life expectancy jumps, which, then we could be like a fifth of the way there, which would be
Yeah.
sick. So just like relax. Like it's not that serious. I mean, I know that it is because you're starting this new chapter and whatever, but it really doesn't have to be. Like the amount of stress that you're putting on yourself as you near the end because you're like, oh my God, like whatever, like just chill out.
Yeah. I like that because you are going to stumble, and you just got to be able
Yeah.
to be ready to move on to the next thing.
And you're gonna
And
fail and you're gonna get fired somewhere, or you're not gonna like this job that you thought you were gonna love, or you're gonna go through a breakup and decide to move cities. So like, like whatever. Like it's just, you don't put that much weight on every single decision that you make. Like you don't have to be 100% sure because you're never gonna be 100% sure, and it's okay to fail because you're gonna.
right. I like that. So, well, thank you for that, guys. I hope you guys got a lot of information from this. If you were worried about going into school, hopefully you've you're a little bit more chill and you're a little bit, more calm on this. I'm looking for more people, so if you're a parent of a student and you want to know, I want to learn about your experience, what it's been like getting your kid ready for college, or maybe they're getting ready to graduate college and they don't quite know what they're going to do. I'm looking for students in college or getting ready to go, because I would love to hear from some high schoolers knowing what you're going through. I know you've got a lot of pressure from people, always asking the question, what college are you going to? What's life like after graduation? And I just want to know the pressures you're going through, what the college search is like, what the testing is like. But feel free to leave comments below. I really think this is going to be some great value to a lot of students out there. Thank you again, Camila. And we'll see you guys in the future. Talk to you guys later. Bye.